I'd like to welcome you to Infinity Music Hall for the LWL Hartford event. LWL Hartford, for those of you who are not already aware of it, stands for Living, Working, Loving Hartford and its region. And we define its region as New England's Knowledge Corridor, which is the 20th largest market in the United States, also known as Hartford, Springfield, Metro Hartford, Springfield, New Haven. With Hartford at its center, it has a population of over 2.77 million people. A workforce of over 1.2 million, 41 colleges and universities with over 215,000 college students, including Yale, UConn, and UMass. It's larger than Metro Denver and a little bit smaller than Greater St. Louis. It is defined as a knowledge corridor not just because we are a leader in higher education, but because this area is known for innovation. That includes Sam Colt's six shooter, the Colt 45, jet engines, 3D printing, and the like. LWL Hartford is a group which advocates for the cultural and economic interests of the city of Hartford and its Knowledge Corridor region. The steering committee here, and they're all here tonight, I'll just announce who they are. Jim Boucher, I think Jim's in the back there. He's with Capital Workforce Partners. He's also a former city councilman for the city of Hartford. Jennifer Cassidy, Jennifer's out here somewhere. Oh, she's still outside, okay, checking people in. Jennifer Cassidy is a community organizer primarily from the Asylum Hill neighborhood here in Hartford. Scott Orsi from Connecticut Children's Medical Center, he's in the audience somewhere here. And he's one of our steering committee members. And Dr. Tom Swar, who's right in the front here, teaches at Yale part-time. He's also a retired UTC engineer. And me, I'm Peter DeMalia with Design Professionals. Jim, Jennifer, and Tom reside in the city. Scott and I reside in the burbs. LWL Hartford is an organization that is but a figment of your imagination. We have no budget. We have no staff. We have no office. We don't even have bylaws. We have no money, and we like it that way. All events are free. Our speakers do not receive an honorarium. Let me discuss a little bit about the venue that we often have. Default venue right here is Infinity Music Hall. But for our events, LWL Hartford relies on the generosity of downtown venues. We've been at Russian Lady, Salute, Hot Tomatoes, among others. Our venue tonight is, of course, Infinity Music Hall, which has been our default venue of late, and we appreciate the generosity of Dan Hinks. Dan's in the audience somewhere here, so I'm back there. A former LWL Hartford speaker. In fact, he did a presentation to us about a year and a half before this venue opened, and we learned all about the great concerts they're going to bring here, how it's going to be a game changer for the city, and it has been. Tens of thousands of people coming to the city, enjoying what it has to offer, the best of it, every year. So we love it. And it makes it available to us at no charge. Meg Fannion is also here from her staff. She worked with us earlier. Jay over there on sound. We encourage you to enjoy dinner here in the bistro, which I often do after our event. And for this evening, we've been told that for your food tonight, if you stay for dinner at the bistro, you will receive a 10% discount. Just make sure you tell your server that you're with LWL. We also encourage you to come back, as I've done many times, sitting up there in the balcony or downstairs for a concert and perhaps dinner before the concert. We encourage you to support the people who support us. LWL Hartford events are always held on the last Wednesday of the month, with the exception of November and December, which due to the holidays are held a week earlier, and are always 5:30 to 7, just a 90-minute program. Our March 30th event, just going to announce a few of those that are coming up. We already have, next three are already booked. March 30th event will be held at the Front Street Lofts. It's right next door, 20 Front Street, where our speaker, Jeremy Browning of Trio Properties, will talk about his 6-story mixed-use development, the Front Street Lofts, which includes 121 apartment units on 5 floors over street-level retail space. This building is immediately adjacent to the Wadsworth Athenaeum, UConn's new Hartford campus, which if you go out the door to the right, if you look over, you see it's under construction right now, and also adjacent to this building with Infinity Music Hall. We'll be given a tour of the building as well. For this event only, we're looking for some volunteers to bring little beverages, so we already have some. But if you could see one of the steering committee members, you want to bring some, we'd appreciate it for that event only. And we'll be entering, by the way, next month at 5:30, we'll be entering through their lobby, which is you just take a right out of here, you walk straight toward the Front Street Loft building, and right in the bottom floor is the main lobby entrance, and that's where we'll be entering. For April 27th, our April program, we'll be returning to Infinity Music Hall, and the event will be featuring Marilyn Rossetti, many of you know her, of the Open Hearth. Since 1884, the Open Hearth Association has been providing a temporary residential community for homeless men in the Greater Hartford and Connecticut area in a recovery and work-oriented environment. Their mission is to help men help themselves, and we'll be learning all about it. I look forward to learning about it. And our May program, on May 25th, again at Infinity Music Hall, will feature Dr. Bob Painter, who is a renowned area physician, surgeon, and former Hartford City Councilman. And he will be discussing the heroin and opioid epidemic, and what we can do to alleviate this growing menace. In 2015 alone, I know I've been reading this of late in the current and other publications, Connecticut lost 415 of its citizens to heroin overdoses alone. And I know over 700 people lost their lives for drug overdoses alone. We've got to attack this problem. And this will probably be one of many events we have, programs we have with respect to this epidemic. And now we'd like to move into the formal part of this program. Having a larger crowd, we moved it here into the hall thanks to Dan and company. And our format is, we've already done the first part, which is a little networking for half an hour or so. We'll have a speaker for 10 to 20 minutes, followed by a Q&A, and then if time permits, some additional networking. And we're all done around 7 o'clock. Tonight's speaker is the Honorable Luke Bronin, Mayor of the City of Hartford. We hope to hear about his vision for the city and how we can help to make it happen. His vision, that is. Just to let you know a little background, oh, by the way, when I was looking up on the internet, someone named Sarah Bronin just kept coming up all the time when I was searching. And some of the background attributes were very similar in terms of education, Rhodes Scholar, I think, that type of thing, studying overseas. But anyways, Mayor went to Yale College undergraduate, went to Oxford University. I believe that was a Rhodes Scholar there. Rhodes Scholarship. He went to Yale Law School, graduated from there. He is a practicing lawyer. He was a naval officer. He was at the rank of lieutenant. He served in Afghanistan with the military. He also was chief of staff for the president, I believe, for the Hartford here in the city, one of our major employers. And he was general counsel, I believe it was, to Governor Malloy. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mayor Luke Bronin. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Peter, and thanks also to Jim and Jennifer and Scott and Tom for putting this together, and for everybody for coming. Some of you are sitting far at the back to make an easy escape, but feel free to come farther up if you want to be part of the conversation. But it is great to be here. I appreciate the invitation, and this is a great group. And if the name is an indication, then hopefully I'm preaching to the choir already on some of the things that I want to say. If you live around Hartford, you love Hartford, or you work in Hartford, then you have a stake in Hartford's rise and in Hartford being a success. Some of you I know have heard me say some versions of this before, and so my apologies to you, but I think it's important to talk about again and again about the vision that I think we all should have for the city of Hartford. And it is to be the undisputed economic and cultural heart of that region of 1 million people that Peter spoke of. We have unbelievable assets in this city. We have a corporate community that most cities our size would kill for. We have arts and cultural institutions that put us far above our weight if you stack us up against most other cities, whether you're talking about the Wadsworth Athenaeum, the incredible productions at the Hartford Stage, Theater Works. Just this past weekend you could have done half a dozen incredible things, as well as the sports, seeing UConn or the Wolfpack downtown, and that's just in the downtown. We've got incredible cultural assets and institutions all around our city. We are rich in culture and in arts, and it's something that we should promote and talk about. We also are rich in diversity that makes us, I think, an incredibly powerful place in this time when I think one of the trends nationally is that people want to be in urban centers. They want to be in places that are diverse. They want to be able to go out one night and get some jerk chicken and go out the next night and get some Peruvian food, and they want to go out the next night and get some Italian, and on and on and on. We have so much to offer as a city to this region that I think we all need to share. At the same time, as we work to try to reassert Hartford as the clear economic and cultural center of this region, we also have to make sure that everybody in our city, every resident of the city, no matter where they live, feels like they've got a share in that rise. Those two things have to go hand in hand, because success cannot be measured only by residential conversions downtown and the old Bank of America building being turned into units, think 1 and 2 bedroom units, as exciting as that is. It can't be measured just by getting UConn downtown, as exciting as it will be to get a couple of thousand students on the street helping to support more retail and more amenities. All of that's exciting. But if we're going to be a strong city, we have to address the fact that tens of thousands of our residents live in poverty, that in some neighborhoods that's 1 in 2 families, that in some neighborhoods our unemployment levels are higher than they were during the Great Depression. And although we're not going to change that overnight, we have to make sure that everybody in the city is feeling a difference and making sure that they know that City Hall and that the city as a whole is focused on their success as well. So those two things go hand in hand. To try to deal with some of those challenges, I think we need to focus on a couple of key priorities. One is youth employment. We saw over this past summer a spike in gun violence that stood apart from any other city in our region. There were some other cities nationally, but alone in New England in the dramatic increase in violence that we saw. And it's a complicated problem. There's no single solution, but I deeply believe that a big part of the problem is that so many of the kids growing up in our city have not had the opportunity to find a job, to earn a paycheck, to get that sense of pride that comes with earning a paycheck, to get the pride that comes with doing a job that you can see. And so one of my key priorities is trying to create what I've called the Youth Service Corps. If we are facing Great Depression level unemployment, let's look to some Great Depression solutions. The Civilian Conservation Corps put young people to work around our country, building the infrastructure of our country. I think we need to do that here. And we need to target it at those kids who may not be quite ready for those internships at the Hartford or the Travelers. Maybe they're not even ready. I see Tom Phillips standing here, and Tom does tremendous work at Capital Workforce Partners in building and maintaining a really strong summer youth employment program. It still has a ways to go to satisfy demand. We have so much room to grow till we're satisfying demand, but there are also thousands of kids who aren't even yet ready for that. So I'm out working hard to try to raise support for that, but I think it's important that we talk about those challenges at the same time as we talk about what we need to do to develop our downtown, to promote our arts, to promote our culture. I don't want to go on for too long because I want to get to questions. I always prefer to just have a conversation, but I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about another challenge that we have, because like it or not, this has to be our #1 priority, and it is addressing the budget crisis that we have. And make no mistake, we have a full-blown budget crisis. This current year, ending this June 30th, we have about a $9 million shortfall. That's after getting about $12 million in unexpected revenue from a bond sale. That means that the budget that was passed last year was really about $22 million out of balance. It was based on assumptions that were just never realistic. If we look at next year, we're right now looking at a $32 million deficit. And if we don't make structural changes to address that, it only gets worse. The year after that, it's 48 million. The year after that, it's 63 million. And the year after that, it's 67 million. So we can't just muddle through anymore. We can't pull a patchwork together and sell a parking garage here or steal some reserves from this account here. We have to do some real structural change. And we have to make cuts. There's not going to be any solution to the challenges that we face that aren't painful and aren't very, very difficult. But my deep conviction is that we are at a moment in this city where there is enough going right that if we're willing to take our challenges head on and we're actually willing to make the changes that we need to get onto a strong, stable footing over the longer term, then this city will be competitive with some of the strongest and the best and most vibrant metropolitan regions in the country. It won't happen with us alone. We need to act like a region. We need to embrace the region. We need to make sure that everybody in Greater Hartford and beyond recognizes that they've got as much at stake in Hartford's success as those of us who live in Hartford do. And again, I suspect by living or loving or working in Hartford, you already share that view. If you do, you have a huge role to play in helping us make that happen. And it can be as simple as spreading the word to your friends or your neighbors or your family, that when they tell you that there's nothing to do in Hartford, you come back at them and you tell them all that there is to do in Hartford. When they say they haven't been here in 20 years, you say that's not something to be proud of. You're missing out on one of the great cultural and arts and culinary assets in New England. And when they tell you that there's no place to park, tell them that, if you may not be able to park 10 feet away because we actually are a city, but it's really not all that hard to find a place to park. So you need to be, I'm asking you to be ambassadors in this. And we're a region of about 1 million people, but that's small enough that if everybody here actually makes it a mission, makes a point to try to sell Hartford and promote Hartford every chance you get, you can make a difference. You can bring more people down to our restaurants. You can bring more people in to explore our beautiful parks. You can bring more people in to see some of our museums or our theaters. And I think those are the kinds of things, with the word of mouth, keeping momentum going, as we deal honestly and directly with the challenges we face. Those two things together are going to put us on a path to being a truly great city again. And I hope that you'll be part of it. So thank you very much for the chance to say a few remarks up front. I'd be happy to take questions, and I'm happy to go as long as you want until it's time to go give Dan some more business. I also want to say if you haven't been here before, I hope you are as awestruck by this venue as I am every time I come in. It's a gorgeous venue. Dan Hinks, who is responsible for making this happen, I think has done a phenomenal job. Make sure you're spreading the word about this place too. They have a great variety of acts that come through here. Check it out, spread the word, and come and have dinner while you watch a show too. It's a great place to be. So thank you very much. With that, happy to take questions. I might not be able to see you all the way back, Mike. McGarry, I can only see you, but I might not be able to see you. So come on front if you want. Mike, go ahead.
Well, Mayor, you talk about pilot, and I agree, we don't get enough from the state. But the largest landlord in the city, you probably know, is the city itself. The city owns too many schools, too many parks, too many roads, too many bridges, too many little police stations, too many firehouses. You have it in you to get rid of some of that land that we shouldn't have. It's not taxable, it costs us money.
I don't know about the bridges, but but the rest. Look, we have to look at everything we've got. You're right. We are a big landowner. We also have a lot of property that we're not doing anything productive at all with, and we need to do everything we can to try to get that into private hands and productive use. We've got on the residential side, we've got hundreds of vacant properties that I think we need to be much more aggressive in using the legal tools available to us to take them by eminent domain, to condemn, to foreclose, to get them back into private hands, even if it's given to somebody for $1, with the commitment that they will fix it up and live there. We need to be much more creative about dealing with blighted and abandoned properties. And as far as city properties go, I agree with you. We are going to have to slim down. That also means take a look at our footprint as a city. We lease a lot of space in it's not just buildings we own. We lease a lot of space in a lot of places. We need to make sure that we're consolidating that and getting the best deal that we can get on that. So yeah, there's a lot we have to do with the properties that we manage. To the other point you made, are we willing to make tough decisions that are going to be painful? We have no choice. We have absolutely no choice. The choice we have to make this year is whether we're going to be a city that starts to grow again, where we can attract businesses, big and small, where we can get businesses that are here to invest rather than look elsewhere, or whether we accept a future for Hartford that is a future of decline. And we refuse to accept a future of decline for our city. So yeah, we're going to make tough choices. Hyson.
So what can we do to change the perception that Hartford is not a safe place to be? As a mayor, how can you help us? I know we as neighborhoods are trying to do whatever we can, but how can we change that to make people feel like it is a safe place to be?
Yeah. I think the answer is we need to address both the perception and the reality. The reality is there's too much crime. We have more work to do. And tomorrow night I'm doing you know this, I'm sure you're going to be there, Hyacinth. Tomorrow night doing a town hall on public safety where we talk about a bunch of different things we need to do. On the law enforcement front, we need to get our police force back up to appropriate staffing levels. Despite the fact that we have a fiscal crisis, we cannot allow our police force to remain more than 100 officers below the recommended, independently recommended number. We need to make sure we've got a force that can be visible, present, that can be a trusted partner by having cops actually out on the street, building relationships with businesses and residents and homeowners. We need to get back up there. That's not, by the way, just costing us more money. It actually will help ease some burden, because right now we're paying so much money in overtime because our force is so small that it's one of the biggest drivers of our deficit this current year. So part of it's police force, but when we look at law enforcement, it's not just about police numbers. Today, we rolled out a new data and intelligence center for the police department, which is about bringing technological tools to bear, making sure that we've got the tools to coordinate between state, local, federal assets, information that may exist in one database over here but was never talking to information over here. Things that allow our police officers to be much more strategic and targeted when they investigate and when they arrest. I'm not interested in measuring success by arrest numbers. I'm interested in measuring success by being smart and strategic and quick in taking those people who pose the biggest threat to public safety off the street, and a technological solution is a big part of that. It's using the cameras that even local business owners and even residents have, and linking those together to give more tools and more information. And the third part of that, with respect to law enforcement, is engaging the community and making sure that we're connecting to the community. Partly that's through things like the faith-based initiative that our police force has, but it's also things like opening up ComStat, which is the weekly meeting where police force reviews statistics from the week before and looks at trends, opening that up to the public, inviting the community in to be part of those discussions, and that's something we're going to be doing soon. So all of that's on law enforcement front, but public safety is much bigger than just law enforcement. Go back to what I was saying about the Youth Service Corps. I think youth employment, both the Youth Service Corps and everything else that's being done to try to create opportunities for our young people, that's a huge part of addressing the public safety problem. As is dealing with the fact that thousands of people come back to Hartford every single year from jail or prison. Many of them would love to get back on their feet in a productive way, find a job, and find an almost insurmountable barrier stuck up in their way every time they apply for a job. We have the catering managers for Bears here, and Bears is a perfect example of the kind of change in mindset that we need to, as a society, embrace. Bears has decided that they're not going to hold people's past against them. Half of their employees are people who live with criminal records. And I've talked with them a bunch of times, and they, like a lot of other employers who have done the same thing, will say that far and away, let me say this, sometimes it doesn't work out, and usually they know pretty soon that it's not going to work out. But when it does work out, they find that the people who have criminal records that they've given a chance to are the most loyal and responsible and committed and hardworking employees they've got, because they know how hard it was to get that shot. And we need to spread that message for private employers everywhere we can. And so there's another way that everybody here can help. If you're at a company, try to make that your mission. That you work on your company to, number one, ban the box. Don't ask the question right up front whether someone has a criminal record. Number two, acknowledge that everybody's made mistakes in their lives, some worse than others, but everybody's capable of change, and we should be willing to look past that. So that's the second part of public safety, is being serious about being a second chance society. Some of that's public policy, some of it's private policy, private employer policy. A third piece on public safety, I think, is actually making our communities look and feel better. Like, there really is something to the idea that if you make a place look like it's cared for and respected, then people will treat it better and act differently. And so, we need to be better about dealing with our blighted properties. I think those are all things that go into the non-law enforcement public safety equation. But there's another piece of this, which is that while we have to acknowledge that crime is higher than it should be, and we have to take all of those steps to try to bring it down, the perception of crime in Hartford is so much higher than reality. And, it blows my mind when people talk about their fear in coming to downtown Hartford. It's just crazy. It's not linked up with reality. And so once again, you can be ambassadors for Hartford wherever you are, whatever community you're in, to talk about the fact that you can. I've walked on literally every single street in Hartford, and I've never had a problem. And in most of the city, certainly in hours that most folks would be coming to enjoy what the city has to offer, you really have nothing to worry about. Now, you should keep your head up like you do in any city, because we're a city. But the perception is so far out of line with reality that we all have a job to do in changing that. Yeah, way in the back there.
Mayor Bronin, John Pastor, International Hartford. I guess more of a comment than a question is, since I've come back to Hartford and worked with nonprofits and faith-based organizations and then also property managers, I'm really seeing that a lot of the drive not only comes from new retail, but it also comes from the faith-based communities where the dovetail what you said before, where they're helping homeless, they're Grace Lutheran Church with their pallet project, where they're having ex-offenders and homeless people build usable furniture, giving people a sense of worth. I think that's a real avenue to tap into to make sure that everybody can collaborate and everybody's connected. Because I see a lot of disconnectedness between whether it be the corporate world, the nonprofit, faith-based. There's a lot of synergies that we capture if those links are made.
It's a great point, and so one thing that I think helps illustrate that, in the greater Hartford area, we've seen chronic homelessness decline by 40% in the last 10 months. And that was because, for the first time, you had all of the different organizations, including churches, including other faith-based institutions, and also nonprofits. For the first time, you had them all coming together around the same table, sharing information down to the individual level, sharing information about specific individuals suffering chronic homelessness, and dividing up the responsibility, making sure that everyone was doing their part, that it wasn't overlapping, they were using the resources they had in the most efficient way. And when they did that, they saw a more powerful impact than anything that had been done in all of the years that all of those groups individually had been trying to do it. And I think one of the things we need to do as a city is to try that same approach with respect to a bunch of different problems. The challenge of re-entry and second chance is one that I think lends itself very well to that same approach. You've got a lot of the same types of players who are doing work independently. So one of the first things that I think we need to do, one of the priorities on re-entry and second chance, is actually getting a common picture. Who are all the individuals that are facing that challenge? And how are all of the groups that are involved going to work together to try to work with those individuals on an individual basis and get them to the employment opportunity, or to the training opportunity, or the assistance they need in applying for a pardon, or whatever it is. But your point that there's a lot of different players who all have a deep sense of a purpose and responsibility to try to help make the city better, but aren't always working together, is one that cuts across a whole bunch of different areas. And I think there's no question that we've got to try to take that model that I think made a real difference in homelessness and apply it elsewhere. Yeah, right across the aisle. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm glad that Ed will be willing to in a couple months to talk about this, but I think we have to move on this as well. This is struggling, and it's not just a payroll, it's a effective. That's what's been this taken care of. There was a recent bus in my hometown, East Hartford workers in the late 80s up until today has been struggling with crack and heroin, even worse as prescription. And I know that as a city, and we want to know what they're doing, we can handle the street issues, but trust me, this past week I've gone back to East Hartford, more devastated than ever. My parents are on it. I see people on the streets on it. People are overdosing and dying, not because of heroin and crack, but because of fentanyl, which, if you map out where the epidemic's happening, East Hartford, Shelton, down in Derby, Bronin, Mystic. The one thing that ties these together is that there were places, anesthesiology places, there were places where it's easy for people to even break in, steal these drugs. And fentanyl is what heroin is nothing. People on the streets have been dealing with it for a long time, and I think people had to know this. But now they're dying, but not because of the bus. Like the bus they made in Belfort is great. But in the city today, going to Newington, Burlington, Turnpike, it is insane. And even if people are not dying from it, you know, and this is related to the homeless problem, the job problem. I'm glad that you're trying to get kids working because it's almost really hard to fix it once you get it. I don't think any of us really understand the struggle of heroin addiction, of money, fentanyl, and I don't know if it's possible because pharmaceuticals, it's hard to touch them, and they're doing their best. Limited, but even like a fentanyl patch, even if they throw it away, people can get them, they can process it, and this is just going to get worse. We can't wait 2 months to talk about this. Like, this is horrifying. This is like, trust me, I work in downtown, I live in Wethersfield, where it's even worse. Nobody talking about it. And I'm so glad that right now it's unavoidable. But I just want to know what can we do as a, not just City Hall, not just the nonprofit churches, what are we going to do to really address this, and not just on the streets? I was born in 88, so I don't know, I'm sure you guys have a plan, but I'm just frustrated that there seems to be actions happening, but we gotta talk about it.
I think you're exactly right. I agree with everything you said. I don't know how good our plan is just yet. I think one of the problems is that we have, as a country, we've been dealing with drugs as a criminal justice problem for a long, long time, instead of as a public health problem. And I think this epidemic is showing more powerfully than all the others before that this is a public health problem, and we need to treat it that way. You cannot arrest your way out of the heroin epidemic. Even if you're focusing on the big organizations that are bringing the large amounts in, you're also right about the causes. It's a new challenge because so many people are getting hooked without even realizing it, and without ever making the decision to do something that they thought they would never do. They're just taking what their doctor prescribed them. The other thing that you spoke to, which we're talking about, is it is not an urban problem. It's not just the city of Hartford. It's not just our inner ring suburbs. It's everywhere. It's everywhere in the state, and it's everywhere in the country. And I think until we as a country start, number one, dealing with the medical prescriber side more effectively. Number two, do what Connecticut is trying to do, which is make naloxone, the medicine to reverse the effects of overdose, publicly available. Not just available to first responders, but available to everybody. We should be doing that across the country. and we need to put more resources into treatment. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with my public health director, with our police chief about what we can do together to be more effective. And what it comes down to is we identify, you know, so step back, we talk with the police chief about how can you divert individuals that you're encountering who you know are addicted. And it wouldn't do any good to bring them and book them to the police station and book them. You need to divert them to a place where they can get help. But there's not enough places to get help. There's not even close to enough places to get help. And the city of Hartford doesn't have resources to do what we're doing today, let alone step into that breach. The state of Connecticut doesn't have enough resources to do what they're doing today, let alone step in to that gap. So on a national level, we have to bring a whole different level of resources to bear on the treatment side to make sure that whether it's, I'm no expert in whether it's methadone, whether it's other types of treatment and intervention, we have to make sure that we have the resources available so that the treatment providers can be engaging in a sustained way with individuals who are wrestling with addiction, because you can't break it without that. So I guess there's a plan, but there are a lot of steps between here and executing that plan, and the biggest step is getting a totally different level of federal commitment to what is a national issue.
Over there to the left.
Yes. Andrea.
How are you? I appreciate you sharing your vision about particularly the youth service corps as well as helping ex-offenders. But I think before kids are ready for employment, before they become ex-offenders, there's the education piece. And I'd love to hear you talk about how do we address some of the education inequities within the city to make sure that our kids are prepared so that they don't end up falling into the prison pipeline.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, so the question was, before we're talking about youth employment, before we're talking about interaction with the criminal justice system, our first opportunity to get kids on the right track is education. And how do we deal with education in general, and how do we deal with the inequities in the system? And the inequities are stark. They're profound. I think that we are, the city of Hartford is at a crossroads when it comes to education. We have, for the last decade, tried something really unique and in a lot of ways really powerful. As a result of Sheff versus O'Neill, we have built upwards of 50 magnet schools. And a lot of those magnet schools are terrific, and they've created important opportunities for a lot of kids that didn't otherwise have them. At the same time, we have seen a dramatic and I think pretty devastating shift in our neighborhood schools. We now have neighborhood schools that have a whole different level of burden in educating kids who have special education needs or English language learners. I was talking with the superintendent today about this. 90% of English language learners in the city of Hartford are in our neighborhood schools. And she estimated that 70% of kids with special education needs are in our neighborhood schools. There are some schools where 60% of the student body is either an English language learner or a kid with special education needs. You cannot succeed with those numbers. So we have to, without abandoning the model that we've built over the last 10 years, we have to make sure that our magnet schools, whether they're Hartford Public or CREC, are bearing an additional part of that responsibility of providing education to the kids in the greatest need. And we have to make sure that we are focusing back on our neighborhood schools. I think a part of the way that we do that, and I can't do this alone, this takes a lot of advocacy, working with Sheff plaintiffs, working with the state, and we're trying to do it. But I think part of it's about broadening the scope of Sheff, so that Sheff versus O'Neill is not just about racial integration. It's not just about how many kids of one color are sitting next to how many kids of another, but it's about how are we using that case to create educational opportunity and hopefully direct some of those resources to the challenge of providing effective special education and effective English language learner opportunities. That, I think, is the big game. That's what we really have to do a lot better than we're doing, and it's going to take help from a lot of partners to make that happen. In the meantime, we also have to address the fact that we've got an enrollment challenge in the city of Hartford. And we've got, again, not partly, almost entirely, because we've built so many schools, so many magnets, our neighborhood schools have seen a dramatic decline in enrollment. So you've got a lot of schools that are operating below capacity. And so we have, we're in the process, the beginning, going to involve a lot of community discussion, but we need to do a really intense strategic planning effort looking at what the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years look like, and how do we prepare for that as we're looking at how many schools we have, where are they, what kind of education are they providing. Yeah.
So I'm a resident of Hartford, and I know I'm looking forward to seeing what hopefully is based in Israel University. But I know as I talk to people who live in some of the neighborhoods outside of downtown, they're afraid that your focus is going to be downtown. How do I, or what do I tell them that you're going to do for neighborhoods outside of downtown? So the people who you spoke about wanting every citizen to feel like they have to be Hartford.
So first, I just encourage them to come to any of the town halls. I'm doing a monthly town hall where they can ask me any question directly, and I want as many people as possible to come to those. I did my first one in Chappelle Gardens, off of Barber Street a couple weeks ago. Got this another one tomorrow at Hartford Public High on public safety, and I suspect the March one will be focused mostly on the budget. But I want everybody to come and ask me any question they want, whether it's on topic or off topic. So I try to get out there as much as possible to answer those questions. But to answer your question specifically, part of it is in the programming. When I talk about the youth employment piece, that's the impact of that, I think, will be felt primarily in our neighborhoods. And the kind of projects that I want to be done are things that will have a visible impact, whether it's maintaining our trails. We have in our parks, we have some of the most beautiful parks in the country, in every neighborhood, that are not kept up as nearly as well as they should be, not because DPW isn't good, but because they just don't have anywhere near the resources to do it. And so I want to help restore those parks to be, incredible parts of neighborhood life. From an economic development standpoint, some of my big priorities are on our main corridors, whether you're talking about Albany Avenue or Franklin or Farmington or North Main. Those are the places that I think we need to really focus on trying to revitalize. We now have, CRDA, the Capital Region Development Authority, which is the engine behind a lot of the growth you've seen in downtown. They're the ones that have invested the money to convert, 777 Main Street, the old Bank of America. Or they did this. They did Front Street. They did the lofts just up the road here. They now have $20 million per year in each of the next 2 years that will be focused on neighborhood investment. And I sit on the board of CRDA. That is one of my top priorities, figuring out how we can use that money most effectively to try to get some growth in our neighborhoods outside of the downtown. Again, none of that's easy. None of it happens overnight, but I think the opportunities are real. Take Albany Avenue as an example. Albany Avenue sees 20,000 cars come down it every morning, and they all drive right to their parking garages, or they divert down Homestead and drive right to their parking garages. And that's a corridor that used to be a really vibrant commercial corridor, which knit the neighborhood together and was the artery to the whole Farmington Valley. You're not going to revitalize Albany Avenue in one step, but if you start moving block by block, working to fix up the blighted properties, to try to connect small businesses with the Department of Economic and Community Development, which has a Small Business Express program. Working with developers to fill in some of those vacant lots so that you can get a streetscape that is continuous all the way down. I think we can start to see some real change there, and I'm sure going to try. So those are some of the things. That's just one example. But I think we need to continue doing what has been happening downtown because we need a vibrant core. But like I said at the start, I don't think we can get there if we're not trying to strengthen the entire city. Sure.
Hi, my name is Melissa Everett. I am a Trinity graduate, been gone a long time, very heartened by your election, been very glad to be back around. Building on the the piece about parks and sort of urban economic security, I want to ask a question about natural resource security, and it's whether you are aware of the Metropolitan District Commission's emerging plan to sell some of Greater Hartford's water supply to a bottling company called Niagara, which has raised considerable concern in Bloomfield, where the company plans to be sited. There's been a great deal of citizen organizing and fact-finding, and there's now legislation being developed to make sure that commercial sale is not incentivized over individual and small-scale use, to make sure that water supplies are protected in the event of drought. You've already heard this one. So I wonder, are you aware? Do you have a position? Are you open to maybe a briefing or a meeting with citizens who are concerned about this?
I am aware of it. It has not been at the top of my list of things to dig into, but I am aware of it. I have been following it. I certainly understand the concerns, and obviously, making sure that there's nobody's getting priority use. The water supply is important, and so I'll sort of continue to follow it. Appreciate it. Do you want any? It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Final remarks. First of all, please join us. Some of us are going over to the bistro for dinner. I hope you will avail yourselves of the 10% discount tonight, but you have to mention LWL Hartford for your server to grant you that benefit. Thank you very much to Dan Hinks for that, his generosity. And please go up and thank Dan. I think he's over in the side there. Please thank him for his generosity in making this venue available for this program and other programs. Second thing is just a thought I had, and that's that I've been coming to downtown Hartford since I was in my 20s, some 40 years ago, and I've never had a problem in downtown Hartford ever with crime. None of my friends who come to downtown Hartford have ever had a problem with crime. We do have crime in the neighborhoods, we know that, we definitely have to address that, but I can tell you if we need to be ambassadors, get more people to come into the city from the suburbs. My brother's here in the front. We have a sister who lives in St. Louis, and they don't go downtown St. Louis. They just don't. In Hartford, we do. We avail ourselves of all the great facilities such as Infinity Music Hall, all the dining venues, etc., cultural arts, and hopefully we'll be ambassadors for that. We have a long way to go for other neighborhoods, but we certainly have it now. Second thing is we do have some programs coming up. There's flyers in the table as you came in. There's flyers for the next 3 programs we have, including the Front Street Lofts at always the last Wednesday of the month, with the exception of November and December. Always 5:30 to 7, and it's always free. So come and take a tour of the Front Street Lofts and learn all about it. And we look forward to seeing you next month. So I think that's probably it. We miss anything? I think that's about it. And if anyone wants to volunteer to bring some beverages for next month's program, because we won't have the ability to come to the cash bar here at Infinity Music Hall, it's just up the street, they can't relocate it. We'd appreciate that. Come see one of the steering committee members. And thank you very much to Luke Bronin for his great presentation.